Hello everyone. Now I would like to share a book. Name is Why Buddhism is True. So now I'm going to read chapter 1. Taking the Red Pill. At the risk of over-dramatizing the human conditions. Okay, have you ever seen the movie The Matrix? Maybe you know. It's about a guy named Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, who discovers that he's been inhabiting a dream world. The life he thought he was living is actually an elaborate hallucination. He's having the hallucination wine, and unbeknownst to him, his actual physical body is inside a gooey, coffin-sized pot, one among many pots, rows and rows of pots, each pot containing a human being absorbed in the dream. These people have been put in their pots by robot overloads and given dream lives as pacifiers. So, the choice faced by Neo to keep living a delusion or wake up to reality is famously captured in the movie's Red Pill sense. Then Neo has been contacted by rebels who have entered his dream, or strictly speaking, whose avatars have entered his dream. Their leader, Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne, explained the situation to Neo. Neo, you're a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, into a prison that you cannot taste or see or touch. What does it mean? It's a prison for your mind. The prison is called the Matrix. But there's no way to explain to Neo what the Matrix ultimately is. The only way to get the whole picture, says Morpheus, is to see it for yourself. And then he offers Neo two pills, a red one and a blue one. Finally, Neo can take the blue pill and return to his dream world, or take the red pill and break through the shroud of delusions. Why do you think Neo chooses? Neo chooses the red pill. That's a pretty stark choice. A life of delusions and bondage, or a life of insight and freedom. In fact, it's a choice so dramatic that you think a Hollywood movie is exactly where it belongs. That the choices we really got to make about how to live our lives are less momentous than this, more pedestrian. Yet, when that movie came out, a number of people saw it as monitoring a choice they had actually made. The people I'm thinking about are what you might call Western Buddhists, people in the United States and other Western countries who, for the most part, didn't grow up Buddhist but at some point adopted Buddhism. At least they adopted a version of Buddhism, a version that had been stripped of some supernatural elements typically found in Asian Buddhism, such as belief in reincarnation and in various deities. This Western Buddhism centers on a path of Buddhist practice that in Asia is more common among monks than among lay people. What are these? Meditation, allowing immersion in Buddhist philosophy. And what the Buddha say? Two of the most common Western conceptions of Buddhism, that is atheist and that it revolves around meditations around. Most Asian Buddhists do believe in gods, though not on omnipotent creator God and don't meditate. These Western Buddhists, long before they watched The Matrix, had become convinced that the world as they had once seen it was a kind of illusion. Not an art hallucination, but a seriously wrapped picture of reality that in turn warped their approach to life. which has consequences for them and the people around them. Now they felt that, thanks to meditations and Buddhist philosophy, they were seeing things more clearly. Among these people, the matrix seemed an allegory of the transition they'd undergone and so became known as a Dharma movie. The word Dharma has several meanings, including the Buddha's teachings and the path the Buddhists should treat in response to those teachings. In the wake of Matrix, a new shorthand for "I follow the Dharma" came into currency and took the red pill. So I saw The Matrix in 1999, right after it came out, and some months later I learned that I had a kind of connection to it. The movie's directors, the Wachowski siblings, had given Keanu Reeves 3 books to read in preparation for playing Neo. One of them was a book I had written a few years earlier, The Moral Animal, Evolutionary Psychology and Everyday Life. I'm not sure what kind of link the director saw between my book and The Matrix, but I know what kind of link I see. Evolutionary psychology can be described in various ways, and here's one way I had described it in my book. It's the study of how the human brain was designed by natural selection to mislead us, even enslave us. Don't get me wrong, natural selection has its virtues, and I'd rather be created by it than not be created at all, which, so far as I can tell, are the 2 options this universe offers. Being a product of evolution is by no means entirely a story of enslavement and delusion. Our evolved brains empower us in many ways. They often blast us with a basically accurate view of reality. Still, and ultimately, natural selection cares about not only one thing, or I should say cares, in course, about only one thing, since natural selection is just a blind process, not a conscious designer. And that one thing is getting genes into the next generation. Genetically based traits that in the past contributed to genetic proliferations have flourished, while traits that didn't have fallen by the wayside. And the traits that have survived, this does include mental traits, structures and algorithms that bit into the brain and shape our everyday experience. So if you ask the questions, what kinds of perceptions and thoughts and feelings guide us through life each day? The answer, at the most basic level, isn't the kinds of thoughts and feelings and perceptions that give us an accurate picture of reality. No. At the most basic level, the answer is the kinds of thoughts and feelings and perceptions that helped our ancestors get genes into the next generation. Whether those thoughts and feelings and perceptions give us a true view of reality is, okay, strictly speaking, beside the point. As a result, they sometimes don't. Our brains are designed to, among other things, delude us. Not that there's not anything wrong with that. Some of my happiness moments have come from delusion, believing, for example, that the tooth fairy would pay me a visit after I lost a tooth. That delusion can also produce bad moments. And I don't just mean moments that in retrospect are obviously delusional, like horrible nightmares. I also mean moments that you might not think of as delusional, such as lying awake at night with anxiety or feeling hopeless, even depressed for days on end, or feeling bouts of hatred toward people. Perhaps that may actually feel good for a moment, but slowly corrode your character, of feeling bad or hatred toward yourself, of feeling greedy, feeling as compassion to buy things or eat things or drink things were beyond the point whether you're being deserved. Though these feelings, anxiety, despair, hatred, greed, and delusional the way nightmare is delusional. If you examine them closely, you will see that they have elements of delusion, elements you'll be better off without. And if you think you'll be better off, imagine how the whole world would be. After all, feelings like despair and hatred and greed can foster wars and atrocities. So, if what I'm saying is true, if these basic sources of human suffering and human cruelty are indeed in large part the product or delusion, so there is value in exposing this delusion to the light. Sounds logical, right? But here is a problem that I started to appreciate shortly after I wrote my book about evolutionary psychology. The exact value of exposing delusion to the light depends on what kind of light you're talking about. Sometimes understanding the ultimate source of your suffering doesn't, by itself, help very much. Okay, thank you, everyone. If you're listening this, I'm gonna stop for this chapter and I will continue